What about the Kaaba? In Islam, the Kaaba is extremely important. It is seen as the first house built for mankind in the name of Allah. According to the Islamic narrative, it was an extremely important house. Allah values it so much. It was built for humanity, for the people, to come there and to circle this cube. But yet, when we look at the actual history, we have no historical records, nothing about the Kaaba. Abrahamic religion, biblical religion, and tradition is entirely disconnected from the Kaaba. The very prophets and books that Islam refers to from the past are entirely disconnected from the Kaaba, and all we have is that the Kaaba is a pagan temple adopted by the Muslims.
Alright, so I'm going to make this video as quick as possible. So basically, Apos says that there's no connection to there's no connection in the Bible to the Kaaba, and that the Kaaba was originally pagan, and the Prophet Muhammad took that pagan shrine of the Kaaba and made it into something Islamic. Now, is this true? No, it isn't. All you got to do to refute this point is read the history of Al-Tabari, which I have right here. The history of Al-Tabari, volume 6, page 51, talks about how Abraham and his son Ishmael built the Kaaba, and later on paganism was introduced into the Kaaba. And in the Quran, chapter 2, verse 127, it talks about how Abraham and his son were building the Kaaba. Now, if the Prophet Muhammad was really making up the story of Abraham and Ishmael going to the Kaaba and building it, then he would have been called out for it. But this shows, according to the Quran, there was some kind of pre-Islamic belief that the Arabs and Ishmael and Abraham built the Kaaba. This was a belief before the Prophet Muhammad was born amongst the Arabs. So again, the history of Al-Tabari, volume 6, page 51. You can read it there. Further, if we read in Ibn Ishaq, page 35, now I know I said Ibn Ishaq is not reliable, but this story of the story of Ishmael building the Kaaba and Abraham building the Kaaba is authenticated according to this book, The Prophet of Islam, volume 1, by Dr. Mahdi Rizqallah Ahmed, volume 1. So this narration is backed up. We read on page 35 of the book, we read how paganism got crept into the Kaaba. He says, this Ibn Ishaq, page 35, he says that Muhammad bin Ibrahim bin Hatim then told me that Abu Salah ibn Salam told him that he heard Abu Hurairah said, I heard the apostle of God saying, Akhtam bin Ibn Khuzay said, Oh Akhtam, I saw Amr bin Loy dragging his intestines in hell, and never did I see two men so much alike as you and he. Will this resemblance injure me? Said Akhtam. No, said the apostle, for you are a believer and he is an infidel. He was the first to change the religion of Ishmael, set up idols, and institute the custom of Bahra, Saba, Washam, and Ham. They say at the beginning of stone worship among the sons of Ishmael was when Makkah became too small for them and they wanted more room in the country. Everyone who left the town took with him a stone from the sacred area to do honor to it. Whenever they settled, they set it up and walked around it as they went around the Kaaba. This led them to worship what stones they pleased and those which made an impression on them. Thus, generation passed, they forgot their primitive faith and adopted another religion for that of Abraham and Ishmael. They worshipped idols and adopted the same errors as the people before them. Yet they attained and held fast practices going back to the time of Abraham, such as honoring the temple, going around it, and great and little pilgrimage, and the standing of Arafat and Moselle, sacrificing the victims, and the pilgrim cry, and the great and little pilgrimage, while introducing elements which had no place in the religion of Abraham. So that's how idol worship started in Kabba, according to Ibn Ishaq, page 35 to 36. A man named Amr bin Loy introduced idol worship to them amongst the sons of Ishmael, and when the sons of Ishmael left that area, they took stones from the Kabba, and then later on they started worshiping those stones, and later on, generation after generation, pagan worship became prevalent amongst the Arabs, while remembering some practices of Abraham and Ishmael, such as circulating the Kabba, doing Safa and Marwa, doing the run between Safa and Marwa, etc., etc. So there was a pre-Islamic notion or a belief that Abraham built the Kabba. Abraham and his son built the Kabba, according to Ibn Ishaq, page 35 to 36, backed up by Ibn Hisham, and for the History of Al-Tabari, volume 6, page 51. And so again, it's true that the Kabba is not mentioned in the Bible. That's true. I'm not denying that. But what I'm saying is that there was some pre-Islamic belief that Abraham and his son Ishmael built the Kabba. So this is something that predates Muhammad by thousands or by hundreds of years. The Kabba is mentioned, in the 1st century by some Greek historian. So, the Kabba predates the rise of Islam by, hundreds and hundreds of years, thousands of years. So this concept that the Kabba is pagan. Apos didn't do any kind of reading into the Kabba, the history of the Kabba, according to Islamic sources. He just skips all over that, makes some kind of assumption that the Kabba was always pagan to begin with, and then says, well, Muhammad plagiarized the idea of the Kabba from the pagans, while failing to do any kind of reading on the history of the Kabba. All you got to do is read the history books, Ibn Ishaq, the History of Al-Tabari, the Book of Idols, which is a book by Hisham bin Muhammad, who documented the religion of the Arabs before Muhammad was before the rise of Islam. And he also says the same thing as Ibn Ishaq, that the Kabba was originally built by Ishmael and Abraham, and later on the generation after the first generation of Ishmael introduce paganism or idol worship into the Kabba. So the idea is that, or the whole point is that idol worship was brought to the Kabba by, the generation after Ishmael. They were the ones, according to Ibn Ishaq, the first person who introduced paganism was Amr bin Lu from amongst the sons of Ishmael. So that's how paganism started in the Kabba and in Makkah. So of course Apos doesn't tell any of his watchers any of this stuff, or he doesn't tell his audience any of this because he's ignorant, or he just wants to mislead or lie to people. He didn't give the full history of the Kabba. But when you're David Wood's boyfriend, you start lying and you manipulate in order to make Islam look bad. So he's doing this either he's doing this out of ignorance or he's doing this on purpose. Looks like he's doing this out of ignorance and on purpose, because he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about, or he doesn't know how to do full research into matters. Stay tuned. More videos coming up ahead.